Greetings, everybody. I wanted to do a little bit of a Gurdjieff chat and just realised my little man's not there to watch over us all. There he is. I had some people querying about him. He's just a representation of the horned god, of some people think of as Pan, or maybe Coronis. But I like him because he kind of sits there watching over us and he's got his little horns, which those of you that have read All and Everything will know are very important. And I wanted to do a little bit about All and Everything and Beelzebub's tales. And I was going to read a little bit from Beelzebub's fourth sojourn on the earth, where he talks about a character called Belcultassi, spelt Belcultassi. Now, I always wondered if the bell is sometimes regarded as the sun or beautiful earth. Colt, we've got the colt there, and Assi, I was always told was from an etymology of a word that was, oh, now I can't remember if he said if it was Armenian or Russian, to do with learning, assessing, that kind of thing. But who knows where Gurdjieff gets these names and words from. But Belcultassi is a character in his book, All and Everything. And I was reading a little bit about him and thinking, this is what a lot of us go through. This is what we're attaining to be. So from Beelzebub's Tales, he's talking about Belcultassi. So he's talking, he'd been talking about impulses and manifestations to Hussein. So it's continuing this. My elucidation of all these inner and outer being impulses and manifestations which cause this Belcultassi then to found that truly great society of ordinary free-brain beings. So he'd helped found the Society of Al-Qadan, and I've done a few shows about that before. So he's which caused this Belcultassi then to find that truly great society of ordinary free-brain beings, a society which in its time was throughout the whole universe called, envied for imitation, showed that when this same later saint individual Belcultassi was once contemplating, according to the practice of every normal being, and his thoughts were by association concentrated on himself, that is to say, on the sense and aim of his existence, he suddenly sensed and cognized that the process of the function of the whole of him had until then proceeded not as it should have proceeded according to sane logic. So he started this society, the Society of Al-Qadan, which was full of learned free-brain beings, which we need more of in this world today, and which is what we're attaining to try and become, learned free-brain beings, fully harmonized and centered, all free centers, not just in our inner, but in our higher version of ourselves. And Belcultassi has, over time, because of the work he did, became a saint, which maybe we will become in our future. We'll be recognized for what we've done if we do the right work, if we do the work. Though obviously that's a bit egotistical of me saying that then, at the moment I just want to work on myself. It doesn't matter if I become a saint or not in name, but I would like to be worthy of that kind of thing. I'm working on myself to develop myself so I can break free of the illusion of what this world or the people that are running this world have put us under. And I'm attempting to return to the divine so I can be my real me, the real I inside me, my essence comes through. But to get to that, I had to suddenly change my way of thinking, or over time things were happening to me that were making me change my way of thinking, or I was noticing that things weren't quite right, which is probably what you've been going through, which is why you've come to this work. You've grown up, as you're growing up, you can see things not quite right, or you have followed the mechanical way of living, and something's happened to you, some kind of shock, or some kind of incident has made you start questioning and thinking in a new way, or looking for a way of thinking in a new way, because you feel quite, well, nobody else is seeing what I'm seeing. Am I mad? Am I going nuts because I I'm seeing things in a different way to everybody else, or you can see through the illusion of what everybody else, or the mechanical sheep, the masses are following. So you're becoming aware of that. So you hopefully have come looking for other people, other ways. You know, you've been led. And I think when people start questioning, but with a certainty, with a need to find the answers, not just a fleeting, because I've met people that have just had it for a fleeting moment and then they go back to sleep again. But you have pushed yourself, you know that things aren't right and you want to find the answers. So you're looking for other people to help you, like-minded people, and have come across people like Gurdjieff, which is why you're obviously watching this show and reading his books. Well, obviously Belcultassi didn't have Gurdjieff back then, but he somehow was able to work on his own mentation of thought, which maybe some people are doing without having to find Gurdjieff. Maybe they have been able to wake themselves up through their own efforts, super efforts, as Mr. Gurdjieff would say. And he's talking here about, and his thoughts were by association concentrated on himself. Well, this is what we're having to do. I've just done a series of Maurice Nicole readings, which hopefully you've all been listening to or been encouraged to go and read the books, where he's saying that we have to work on ourselves. We suddenly become aware that we need to develop ourselves first before we can help others. And some people do it naturally, which, you know, God bless them, thank God they're out there, you know. And what if we didn't have the Gurdjieff work or any other work or path you might have followed? What if we lived in a society or a world where they were trying their best to stop that kind of thinking? Would we have to do all this kind of thing behind closed doors? Would we still be able to develop ourselves and our thought processes and our emotional feelings and, you know, our own physicality to bring our three centers together? Just thoughts up there. Anyway, Gurdjieff goes on about Belcultassi. This unexpected constatation, sorry, I can't speak now. This unexpected constatation shocked him so profoundly that thereafter he devoted the whole of himself exclusively to be able at any cost to unravel this and understand. And that's what we're doing. We're unraveling all the programming that we've been programmed with. We're unraveling all the lies and we're looking through all the illusions that have been put to us as we've grown up. Maybe as a child you could see things weren't quite right. You know, I was a bit like that, thankfully, and I didn't let them shut me down, though they tried their hardest to. I thought there must be people out there that were possibly shut down from thinking in a different way. But Belcultassi is going through this, which was helping him with his development. And Gurdjieff himself said he did all this himself. At all costs, this was the most important thing to him. You know, he had to do this. So carrying on. First of all, he decided to attain, without delay, such a potency as would give him the strength and possibility to be quite sincere with himself. That is to say, to be able to conquer those impulses which had become habitual in the functioning of his common presence from the many heterogeneous associations arising and proceeding in him, and which were started in him by all sorts of accidental shocks coming from outside, and also engendered within him, namely the impulses called self-love, pride, vanity, and so on. And when we're being brought up by our peers and such like, we see that in other people, and then we start to imitate and mock them, and well, not mock them, or maybe we do. But anyway, I know as a teenager, I wanted to be seen, I wanted to be known, I wanted to be respected for what I was doing. You know, obviously I wasn't. I was just seen as a nutter. But I was doing it in the wrong way. I was doing it in the masses way of trying to get attention, when really what I wanted to do deep down, I see now, I knew things weren't right in that world that's out there, and I was trying to find the truth, but I didn't know how to. So I was trying to break free from it all, but at the same time trying to be accepted by them, because I was a bit of an oddity and didn't fit in, because I could see things weren't real. But at the same time, when we're doing this work, we have to kind of use all them energies and turn them around into such a way that we're using it to help our development. We take that energy from the self-love and work upon ourselves. That, and he talks about the what is it, the vanity, Mr. Vanity, pride and such like. We've got to change that into something else so that we're using that energy in a more positive way. We have to recognize what it's doing to us that's detrimental, and instead change it around, which can be quite hard to do, you know, especially when we're programmed to be a certain way. You know, we have all these people now. Thank God I didn't grow up in these years with all this social media going on. I don't know how I would have been influenced by all the tiki-toki things and such like. You know, thankfully we didn't have that, so it wasn't so in your face. But at the same time, we still had magazines, and obviously we still talked to each other at school and on the where we all used to go and meet in gangs outside of school, and that would be like, you know, who's got the best dress, who's got the latest fashion, who's listening to the newest music, who's the coolest dude, that kind of thing. And as we grow older, we still continue that kind of way, but in a more, we think, an adult way. But if we don't mature, obviously it's still childish. You know, people still want the best car or the best house, or my children are the best, that kind of thing. You should be proud of your children if you bring them up rightly. But doing this kind of work, we are trying to put that kind of energy into doing the work. We want to turn it around. Not saying that we're going to be proud of it, but we recognize the pride in us, or the showing off in us, and instead try and turn it around so that it can be used in some kind of more productive way within us to help us unravel everything and rebuild ourselves, you know, and be more awake as to what's going on. And he carries on. And when, after incredible what are called organic and psychic efforts, he attained to this, he then, without any mercy for these being impulses which had become inherent in his presence, began to think and recall just when and what various being impulses had arisen in his presence during the period preceding all this, and how he had consciously or unconsciously reacted to them, which is, you know, I went through all that, and you guys will probably be going through that doing the work. We learn to deal with what we were like in the past, become aware of how we were, realize which I's being like that, and we're trying to bring our essence I out, the true I that understands why we react when we should be acting and things like that. And I was going to say something else then about that one. Let me just quickly go over that again. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and using organic and psychic efforts. You know, we're using our psyche and the you know, I'm not saying you're all mediums and can read people's minds or whatever, but we have other energies within us that we put to waste, or maybe don't realize we have in us, that we can use. You know, your energy inside you, we waste all the time in silly things like imagination, worrying, being angry, when we need to recognize when we're being like that, that's no good for us. So we turn it around and use it in a more positive way that helps us to develop ourselves, being a more positive, progressive energy, a being impulse, as Gurdjieff talks about. We want to make them being impulses work for us. So continuing, analysing himself in this manner, he began to recall just which impulses evoked which reactions in him, in his independently spiritualised parts, that is to say, in his body, in his feelings, and in his thoughts, and the state of his essence when he reacted to anything more or less attentively, and how and when, in consequences of such reactions of his, he had manifested consciously with his I, or had acted automatically under the direction of his instinct alone, And these are the kinds of things we should be watching within ourselves. Are we reacting mechanically, or are we aware of what we're doing? This is why Gurdjieff writes about these characters in these books, because we can see ourselves in them as well and learn from them and see our own progress, hopefully. Because he also talks about characters that do it the wrong way, so we can still learn from them. We're trying to crystallize in the right way. And we're trying to reach that state of our essence where we know we are real. Life is real only then when I am. And it was just then that this bearer of the later soul individual Belcultassi, recalling in this way all his former perceptions, experiences, and manifestations, clearly constated in consequence that his exterior manifestations did not at all correspond either to the perceptions or to the impulses definitely formed in him. And we will come across that as well. You know, sometimes once I started doing this work, I still slipped into old patterns and old programs and still did things that I knew weren't helpful to me in my development. And obviously we still have to go into certain situations which are not helpful to our development. You know, we still have family affairs to deal with. We have to go to work. So that's like at work, you know, that pays the bills, work, that kind of environment. And that's when we kind of put that mask on of, or that we recognize the I within us that fits in with that. But at the same time, there's our essence I, or the real I, is watching and making sure we don't screw up, because you still have to fit in. If you start going in there fully developed, no, not that any of us are, or putting the work into your social interactions with people that are not into the work, people are going to start thinking you're a bit odd and a bit weird and perhaps a bit up yourself. You know, we have to bear other people's manifestations that don't dwell or resonate with us. But we can be aware inwardly, we can see what's going on and how it's affecting us, like what he's saying here, that his exterior manifestations did not at all correspond either to the perceptions or to the impulses definitely formed in him. Further, he then began to make similar, sincere observations of the impressions coming from outside, as well as those formed within him, which were perceived by his common presence. And he made them all with the same exhaustive, conscious verifications of how these impressions were perceived by his separate spiritualized parts, how and on what occasions they were experienced by the whole of his presence, and for what manifestations they became impulses. And this is what we're working towards, of trying to make sure we've got the right impulses, the right being impulses happening in us, and that we're giving off the right impulses out as well. And I'll just finish with this little quote. These exhaustive conscious observations and impartial constatations finally convinced Belcultassi that something proceeded in his own common presence, not as it should have proceeded, according to sane being logic. And we've all been there. We suddenly realized that this world is not a sane world. As Gurdjieff says, we're living in a lunatic asylum. And Belcultassi is beginning to realize this. And this is what we're realizing. So we're trying to work to navigate our way through it by developing ourselves so that we can be, I think, definitely more aware of how we're being influenced and what influences we're putting out there, and how we deal with situations, and how we know we become more aware of what's right and wrong. We're developing our conscience within inside us, and our consciousness is becoming more alert and more awake. So I highly recommend all and Everything, Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson. This chapter is Beelzebub's fourth sojourn on the earth, only just a few paragraphs from it. And I recommend that you continue reading Gurdjieff. Thank you for watching. Till next time, peace, love, and light, and everything to you all. Let's all stay awake together.